Hey YouTubers, at the request of one of my subscribers, I'm going to show you how I deaden the sound on my train layout. And of course this is O scale, and most collectors and operators will recognize that this is Lionel O's track, which has 031 diagonal curves. It is higher, or I should say taller, than the 027 track. And right behind it, you'll see the 027 track. You notice this odd-looking board up here, the strange wrinkles in it, and this is called a Homosote, and it's a sound deadening board. People use it on their houses, particularly on condos between the neighbor's condo if it's right up against theirs, and it definitely works. It deadens the noise. So I had been recommended this because I made the mistake of building the layout on two hollow doors, and oh my gosh, it was like drumming. The hollow doors just resonated the sound of the big Lionel trains running over them and Mark's trains running over them, the track, and it was a disaster. So I asked around some of the train groups, and they recommended putting the Homosote on. So I put the Homosote on, and I was at the train shop. It was called the Western Depot, and Bob was the owner, who's since passed away, and he also recommended using these strips, insulated strips that people use to put around their windows and doors to keep the wind and rain out on older homes, and putting them underneath the ties. So I did that also, and I'm really quite pleased. It made a heck of a difference. It cut the sound down by, I'd say, at least half, if not more. And you'll notice that I've done the same on the 027 track, although it's a thinner insulation because it's smaller ties. But I'm quite pleased with the outcome. You'll notice also that I have the mesas up here, and I have done the same thing up here. Although I don't have Homosote up there, I've got the rubber insulation under the ties, and this sits on, as you can see behind the sign, the billboard, there's a 2x6 with some shrubbery glued to the front of it, and the 2x6 is sitting on the Homosote from the board below, and it actually works. It absorbs the sound from the trains up above. So I thought I'd do a demonstration on this. Going to, still getting used to the new camera. Pull away a little bit, and we're going to run a Lionel 671 and tender around, and really all you can hear is the motor And the clickety clack of the wheels wants to go a little faster. You really can't hear a lot of vibration. Somebody hasn't told my 671 that this is a non-smoking household. And it's really smoking. So let's move this out of the way. I love this old locomotive. It's really a classic. Okay, and we're going to move up a (1975) Lionel Santa Fe War Bonnet 8652. This is not magnet traction. It's using the one of the first Pullmore motors and 2 rubber traction tires. But this thing is incredibly quiet on this layout, and it's running on the 027 track on the inside. And you can barely hear it. So I'll stop that, and I've got one of the newer Marx trains up on the mesas. So let's do a little more of a close-up. And this does have a can motor, so it's naturally quiet anyway. And this was made by Marx Ameritrains in around I think it was 1997, and of course this is their version of the Daylight with a lot less wheels on the locomotive. But let's run that around. You'll see how, or hear how incredibly quiet it is. And I even put rubber under the ties through the bridge. Now, why am I using this old tubular track? Well, for one thing, it's paid for. I moved to the new house, which I'm living in now, and not brand new, but new to me, 10 years ago. And decided to use track that was already paid for. And I'm big on recycling. However, I thought the Lionel Fast Track looked pretty cool. And I was at a train show in Sacramento, and a guy was running his trains on Lionel Fast Track, and it really sounded noisy. And my thoughts on that are that it sort of traps like a drum. You've got that pocket underneath where the Fast Track was screwed down to the layout, and it reverberates. And plus, it really doesn't, to me, my opinion, it doesn't look good with old post-war and pre-war trains. They just look peculiar running on it. And the biggest reason for not purchasing Fast Track is that I have a lot of Lionel trains with Magnetraction. They will not work correctly on Fast Track. Fast Track is not magnetic. Whatever mixture the Chinese are using in their metal, the Magnetraction will not stick to the tracks. So there's another reason. And of course I'm not climbing any hills with my trains, but Magnetraction trains, but yet that Magnetraction helps it stay on the tracks to the corners, particularly on my really older trains where the Magnetraction is up front. And I was at when I was at the same train show, a fellow had a demonstration with Lionel Fast Track and tubular track. And I guess there are pins that you can use to fit it together. And half the train ran on, it was just a loop that was about 6 feet long. He had a small Lionel train, and while he was running it on the Fast Track, it was noticeably I should mention that it was screwed down to plywood. It was noticeably louder. And when it got over to the tubular, it was much quieter. And then he had another table where he'd taken the tubular track and done exactly the same thing. He hadn't used Homosoap, but he'd used these little strips of insulation and put them under the ties. And he was the guy that told me that when you screw your ties down, and I go about every 1.5 feet with 2 screws. When you screw them down, then unscrew the screw at least a half to 1 full turn, and you'll notice this has some play in it. So it's actually attached to the board. It's not going anywhere, yet it's riding on this piece of insulation. So at any rate, usually when I'm running my trains and you guys see my films, I'm playing music in the background, so you can't tell how noisy or quiet my trains are. So now you know. And a piece of plywood, and if you have plywood and you have this tubular track and you don't want to go to the expense of Homosoap, then at least put these strips of rubber in there, and your other family members will be grateful for it. So this is my little film, and I hope this helps you out, Ben. Ben has a plywood board and or 2, I don't know how many, and an all tubular track. So this would be a simple little project for quieting his trains, but I really would recommend that he go out and get some of this Homosoap board. I can't recommend it highly enough. And you'll see where I ran I recycled the 2 hollow doors, and this is actually a hollow door, you can see under there, and I ran it sideways to the main layout so that I could have an extra foot and have a nice workbench there, or test bench as we all like to call it. So that's my little test bench and my little very cheap Lionel transformer, but it's only for testing the trains. And that's I gotta look, I think it's a 736 Berkshire sitting on there. I just set it on there to show that what you could do on the test bench. It's not broken. So anyway, once again, this has been a Big Lizard production. I hope this has helped somebody, or at least given you some ideas, and let you know why I'm still using not channel track, tubular track, because I want it quiet. I want the magnet traction to work on the track, and I'm cheap. Oh, and plus I think it looks really more realistic when you're running the old trains. So anyway, thanks for watching, and bye-bye. Once again, this has been a Big Lizard production.